They say living in a panel building is a way of life in itself. That doesn't begin to cover it. It's more like being a peacock trying to understand Turkey society. We moved into the building 14 years ago, and she was already there. I don't know when she was elected, neither do the neighbors. Ask anyone and they'll answer as if you'd asked about a natural phenomenon. How long has the Mechek mountain been there? How long has the wind blown in November? How long has Irma been the Kurzish Ketvishala? These are questions that have no answers, and no one thinks to ask them. There's a story to the whole thing. Might even be true. One summer, on a Tuesday in mid-July, 3 people voted somebody, while everyone else was at Lake Balaton, or out on their garden plots, or at their grandmother's, eating cherries off the tree. 3 people, 40 years ago, and this is the origin of power. I live in Paytch, in a 4-story apartment block on the edge of the city. The building went up in 1978, during the last great wave of Soviet-era housing construction, when Hungary packed 2 million people into concrete boxes in just a few decades. I only live in a 4-story one, and that's the better option. The corridors are narrow, the stairwell echoes, and in the basement, a former tenant's Cyrillic university notes are stacked along the wall. The paint on the walls is being eaten alive by nicotine, the smell of fried chicken backs, and the bouquet of perm solution. Half the intercoms don't work, but at least there are geraniums on the stairwell railing. Artificial ones, in plastic pots. Lovely. Uncle Nishka waters them despite them being told repeatedly not to. We pay for them separately. In late January, when you least feel like leaving the apartment, the annual residents' assembly is convened. In Hungary, every apartment building has a Kurzish Ketvishala, one person who manages the building's money, handles everything from heating to roof repairs, and is, in theory, elected and overseen by the residents. In theory. The assembly is always called on a Monday, late afternoon, when half the tenants haven't got home from work yet. Always in her stairwell, which is odd, because this means 2 stairwells worth of residents are packed into a space the size of a boxing ring. The atmosphere matches. 50 apartments, 2 blocks, and half the owners would need to be present for a quorum. But that never happens. After 30 minutes of waiting, whoever has shown up gets to decide. 5 people, 6, sitting in their coats because the heating doesn't work in the common room. Irma reads out the budget, Bela nods, and the whole thing is over in under 20 minutes. It's -3 outside. This is how power is born. Not by coup, not by revolution, but because in January, everyone has better things to do. The pensioners' revolution. Irma, let's call her Irma, though the name doesn't matter, because every building has an Irma, drives a car. Not just any car, a bee yellow one. The previous one was bee yellow too. Behind her back, they call her the queen bee. Not because she's industrious, but because everyone works for her. She parks in front of the building, by the fire hydrant where no one is allowed to. The nose of her car jutting out onto the pavement. I don't know where the cars come from. What I do know is that she collects the maintenance fees, accepts cash, writes the receipts herself, and we receive the annual financial report on a single sheet of A4 paper that reads, Renovation Fund, balance in order. I didn't pay attention the first few years. Then I noticed the stairwell lights had been flickering for as long as anyone could remember. Eventually, I started counting. Counting turned out to be a suspicious activity. The building has 50 apartments in 2 blocks. Maintenance fees are 21,000 forints per apartment per month. That's over 12.5 million a year, roughly 35,000 euros. The roof insulation hasn't been touched since the 90s. In the basement corridor, up the former tenants' rave encyclopedias that the younger collar boys' cigarette butts blocked away, and nobody cares. But there are flowers in the stairwell. Lovely ones. No democracy, though there's demand for it. I asked at the assembly what last year's renovation fund was spent on. Irma looked at me with the smile a teacher gives a student who has asked the wrong question at a school ceremony. Adam, everything was done in the interest of the community, she said. Bela nodded beside her. Bela is everywhere, Irma is. He got the cleaning contract too. A few thousand forints a month. Paid in cash, no invoice, because that's simpler for everyone. Bela's apartment has new windows, replaced from the renovation fund, because, in Irma's words, his apartment is in the most critical spot for thermal insulation. Bela lives on the 2nd floor, in the middle of the building, in no critical spot whatsoever. But Bela nods. Bela always nods. Bela is the constitutional court, the nodding mafia. I ask why the cleaning fee doesn't appear in the accounts. I ask why payment by bank transfer isn't allowed. I ask why the annual report is a single sentence. After the assembly, Irma came over and informed me that my wife is presumably an accountant, because suspiciously many people visit our apartment. The neighbors have complained, and she wouldn't just let that go. My wife is a masseuse. The suspiciously many people were her parents, coming up from the countryside to visit their 6-month-old grandchild. A week later, at 8 in the evening, the doorbell rang. Not gently. Someone held the button down while kicking the door. My 6-month-old son had just fallen asleep. 2 neighbors stood in the doorways, people we'd barely seen before. We just came to tell you that around here, people don't get clever. After that, they did the rounds of the floor, telling everyone else what kind of person I am. The next morning, my car's windshield was smashed. Someone had ripped the car cover apart at the seams. The police would only have generated paperwork. There was no point reporting it. It was a message. The nodding mafia, I tell you. 3 months later, another request for an extra contribution appeared in our mailbox. I paid it. I didn't ask. Irma smiled when we passed each other on the stairs. Bela nodded. The system doesn't work because Irma is strong. It works because the legal cost of forcing an audit is higher than whatever the Kurzerscape Fischella could ever embezzle. And because everyone who shows up at the assembly has already received something. Windows, a contract, or free reign over the communal storage. This isn't corruption, it's symbiosis. My son is 6.5 now. Not far from the building, there's a playground, and on the bench by the side, Bela's wife often sits. She also cleans in the building, also for cash. My son likes the slide. Baylor's wife names it. Last year, they put a new national flag on the building's facade. They collected the money separately, 700 forints per apartment. The flag has been hanging there since. Nobody asked for it. Irma said it was patriotic, though the white stripe has faded to the colour of bathroom tile grout. Washing and caring for the tricolour, apparently, is not patriotic. New tenants who moved in after us sometimes ask, who is this Irma? I tell them what I was told 14 years ago, because I have no better answer. She's the capiscible. She is the common representative. It is common, she represents. Whom and in what capacity? That's not a question anyone asks anymore.